So this is the second of three of the last lecture, and this one is going to look at politics, a little bit, and mostly environmental law. So let's take a look at that. Environmental laws and regulations can discourage or encourage innovation, depending on how they are pushed out to the population. What we're doing now is government intervention to reduce degradation, but it's really command and control approach. Often it's after the fact regulators that force cleanup rather than prevention. Incentive-based regulations are to help companies reduce the pollution and waste before it happens, and that's really where we would be really more likely to want to go. That would be the best bet for the environment. So we got to kind of change our thinking, and lots of different environmental laws, and there's really 5 different types. The first one requires evaluation of an environmental impact of certain human activities. And that's happened in the 1970s, the NEPA, and that created the environmental impact studies. So if you're going to do something, excuse me, we want to hear what you think is going to do the environment. We'll let you know if we're going to let you do it. Number 2, set standards for pollution controls. That's the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, things like that. Number 3, set aside or protect certain species, resources, or ecosystems. That would be the Endangered Species Act or the Wilderness Act, so saving animals, saving trees. Number 4, screens new substances for safety and standards. Again, the Safe Drinking Water Act would fall under there. And then the last one, number 5, encourages resource conservation, and that would be the Resource Conservation Recovery Act. Which we talked about a little bit, are mentioned for nuclear power plants. That would be the law for those kinds of cleanup. So there's the 5 different types. Vogel principle number 1 for this one, there's going to be 5, page 34, number 1. There are no absolute principles or universal ecological laws. In other words, nothing is absolute. Everything is changing. And so what we find is our ecological laws today fit what we think is happening. But as the environment changes, so do those ecological laws, things break down. And so, common sense is one of those things that we should be using. All right. The major groups opposed to environmental laws and regulations are typically people that are doing well right now. So corporate leaders and powerful people. Yeah, I got money, I got wealth, I got power. I don't want to give it up. I don't want things to change. Citizens who view environmental laws as threatening to their private properties. I have the right to do anything I want on my property. You can't tell me. I won't wear a mask. This group opposes the laws because they want to do what they want to do. If I want to burn trash in my backyard, or I want to wash down paint into the alley, I should be able to. All right, and the third one is state and local government officials resent having to, especially federal laws. They don't want to deal with federal laws if there's no funding behind it, although they're always asking for federal money. So a lot of pushback against all these laws. Now, it turns out Americans, 80% support laws and regulations. The scary part is that second one, only 10% think it's one of the nation's most pressing problems. So we're not doing, climate change is kind of changing that a little bit, maybe moving those things up. But reality is we are not even close to where we need to be. All right, managing public lands. So I'm not going to go over all this, but here are, we do, I guess, a pretty decent job compared to a lot of other countries, and that's sad because we do poorly. Again, we've shown you a map like this where you can see most of the public lands are kind of in the west, and a lot of them are in Alaska, our last state. But here's what I want you to look over these different groups and try to figure out what they do. And there's a question in the study guide about the most restrictive, and that would actually be the last one, the National Wilderness Preservation System. That's areas within the other parks and areas. So take a look at that. Environmental justice. Everybody has the same right to be protected from environmental hazards. Again, this is the equity issue. that we need to deal with in this country, and um, and you can look these up on the right. These are the 7 um, principles that environmental policy should be governed by. And if we do these, we would have a lot better environmental conditions. So this is in the book. You can look these up. But these are the 7 I want you to know. All right, who can make a difference? Individuals matter. Environmental leadership matters. We talk about only 5 to 10% of the population is needed to make a change. It's kind of that tipping point. So what we're hoping is that you continue to pay attention, or start paying attention, depending on who you are, I suppose, in my class. But we want you to have a voice. We want you to kind of right the wrongs that you're saying. There's lots of groups you can join. These are NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They are the strong point of the environmental movement. They all have different kind of strategies. I gave you some that are famous: World Wildlife Fund with the panda, Greenpeace, a little more radical at times, Nature Conservancy, another big one, and then NRDC you are well aware of. So, and there's more out there, the Sierra Club, Audubon. There's all kinds of different groups with different messages. So my stance would be maybe try to go out and join one, or at least look into them and see if there are causes that you could support. Global environmental security. We always talk about security. It always has been military and weaponry. Norman Maier, a very famous ecologist down below, says that that's not enough anymore. We need to look at also our resources and the environment, climate, things like that, and how vulnerable are we? So if we had to shut down, what resources does the United States have? And that's where your security lies, not depending on other countries. In international environmental organizations. So these are some of the big ones. And so I just want you to be aware of them. United Nations, which includes all these, the WHO, we had the thing about us pulling out of that. The World Bank is another one that funds the world. And IUCN, the International Union of Conservation of Nature. So these are some very, very big organizations that, again, what we're hoping is you take a look at and maybe support down the road. And these all played an important role in just making things better, expanding the understanding of issues, data, environmental treaties, money, and trying to get some of the poor countries up and running and heading in the right direction. And so with that, we will stop the share and stop the recording.